Hello and welcome to the Bronco Exchange. I'm your host, Dr. Shanessa Fenner, along with Jaylen Thames, who's a senior at FSU. And today we have the pleasure of interviewing the infamous Chancellor of FSU, Dr. James Anderson. Hi, Dr. Anderson.
It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Great. Glad to have you. Now, Chancellor Anderson, what year is this for you here at the university as Chancellor?
I'm starting my 10th year.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, went by fast.
Okay. Now, I know one of the biggest challenges in running a university is managing the different revenue sources.
Yes.
So what kinds of funding or fundraising do you have going on this year at FSU?
Well, all the UNC schools, because we're state schools, do receive funding from the state.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that funding has declined over the years because we went through 5 consecutive budget cuts. So to put it in a general context, when I got here, the university's budget was about $88 million, our operating budget. Now it's about $70 million. So we've lost a little over $16 million in state support during that time. That means you have to replace it because tuition and fees alone aren't going to really carry an institution through a school year. You have to identify other kinds of auxiliary services where you raise money, other revenue sources. To give you an example, just 2 years ago we made no money from summer school. Last year we made $250,000 because we revamped it and decided to make it a true revenue stream. So you have to do more of that when the state cuts your budget.
Okay, all right. So in other words, you have to be very creative and wonder.
Yeah, you do. I mean, I'm running a business as much as I'm running a university.
Okay. Now, do you have certain companies or certain people, alumni, that you can reach out to and receive some of these funds?
Well, we're in the midst of a capital campaign, a 5-year, $25 million capital campaign. This is the last year of the campaign. We're a little over 22 million so far, so we've got 1 year to do about 2.5 million to get to 25 million. The bulk of that money will go to student scholarships. I said right up front that the greatest need we have is to support our students. So about 70% of that 25 million will go to student scholarships, to different groups, not just to the general scholarship population, but to athletic scholarships, to military scholarships, to band scholarships, to different groups. The support from our alumni, we've doubled the number of alumni who give. That's been important. We receive some funding from foundations. The problem with raising money for FSU is our geography. There are no major corporations in and around Fayetteville. There aren't many large companies in and around Fayetteville. So you have to go outside of the city and sometimes outside of the state to do some of your fundraising.
Okay, all right. Jaylen?
I was like, what type of activities and events will be planned for the 150th anniversary of the school?
Well, the first thing I do is direct anyone to the calendar that's on the homepage, the sesquicentennial calendar, because we have about 150 events listed during the course of this year. Some are major. Just tomorrow, for example, which is University Convocation, where we celebrate kind of the opening of the academic year. We'll have featured speaker Hill Harper there, TV actor, philosopher, etc. And we'll also have a reception later on. That officially kind of starts the sesquicentennial year. And then throughout the year, for example, in November, the second week of November, we'll have the presidents of the Chinese universities we have partnerships with, they'll visit. The president of Inner Mongolia University is bringing the world famous Inner Mongolia dance troupe with him.
Wow.
And that's part of the sesquicentennial celebration. What's key about the second week of November is 150 years ago, we were founded in November 1867.
Wow.
So we're doing a reenactment of the signing of those 7 founders and leaders who signed the deed to give us that first house, the Howard School on Gillespie Street. We're going to reenact that week. So the second week of November is going to be a big week. We're going to have a lot of things going on. Then there are other things, Founders Day. We're going to have the distinguished Harvard scholar Henry Louis Gates. He'll come and speak. I'm working on getting some other individuals that I can't say their names yet until they sign the contract. Okay, and then we're hoping in April to have a big gala to close the capital campaign.
Okay, all right.
And student organizations, by the way, I wanted this to be very democratic. So we asked all the student organizations, faculty, departments, submit to us your suggestions for what you'd like to do during sesquicentennial. I looked at some of the other HBCUs who did their sesquicentennial, and they maybe had 3 or 4 events during the whole year. We're having 150 because so many people stepped forward and said, we want to do X. And we said, fine. We wanted to really be participatory.
Okay. Now, what does student enrollment look like this year, Chancellor, and what do you contribute that enrollment to?
I just saw the new figures today, 6,226, okay, which is good for us. Mind you, when I first got here, our enrollment was close to 7,000 10 years ago. That's because the state was funding UNC schools only on their enrollment. So a lot of schools made the mistake, and FSU was one, of just getting students in here. They didn't care if they were really ready for college. They just got them in here so that they could get enrollment money. Well, once I got here and saw how poorly a lot of those students were doing, that they actually shouldn't even be in college, we lopped off about 500 or 600 right away, okay? Because we knew that was putting stress on the university. We were having to pay for services for students who were never gonna graduate. They would drop out, stop out, etc. They didn't pay their bills. It was a mess. And so right now for us, a good enrollment is about 6,300. And we're projected in 5 years to go to 7,000, but we'll build that enrollment and go after a better student, a student coming in with a stronger academic profile, a student that's more motivated, and a student that's really ready to do well in college and then go on and do well in the workforce.
Okay. Now, speaking of student enrollment, of course, parents go ahead and start those college funds early. I know many parents say that when their baby's born, that next month they go and start that, college fund. What kind of advice would you give parents right now who I'd say within the next 5 or 6 years they've got a student coming to college in regards to money?
Well, they do have to plan. I mean, you have to make sure that, because the true cost of college is not just tuition and fees. Any student will tell you that. The true cost of college also are all the other ancillary things that students need money for in order to survive in college. And so we try to make sure that the parents understand when you calculate what your expenses are going to be, calculate the true expense of college, not just what the tuition and fee says it is. We also tell parents not to take too many loans.
Oh.
Like, look at the student loan, whatever the student is eligible for, and try to make it on that student loan. See, the last couple of years, a lot of parents got involved in this Parent Plus loan. So they had the student taking a loan, then the parent took a loan. And when the day of reckoning came, everybody had to pay off these loans. What we say to students is, look, we'll try to help you. For example, you could do work study on campus and make some money. We'll try to give you a grant. But we want just the student primarily to take a loan, not the parents to take a loan. I'm not here to put the whole family in debt to go to college. Those schools that got in trouble with the Parent Plus loan, they should have done like us, which is when we counsel students and their parents when they come here for a visit and are thinking about coming to FSU, we tell them right out, don't take the Parent Plus loan. Doesn't make sense for both of y'all to be in debt. Just the student loan, and we'll try to do some things to help the student make up the difference.
Okay, so they continue to fill out that FAFSA.
Yes.
And then, of course, they send it in, and then from that, they'll get the projected income that they're going to receive.
Yes. They are supposed to fill out the FAFSA. They don't always do that like they should, and they don't always do it and meet the deadline when we ask them. For example, we looked at 200 students who last fall weren't going to come back this spring, and their only problem was finances. So we said to them, if what you owe the university isn't too much, we'll give you a grant and make that up. You don't even have to pay it. We'll make it up. All you have to do is fill out the FAFSA.
And they didn't fill it out.
They didn't fill out the FAFSA. Here the university is giving them money to come back to school in the spring, and most of them wouldn't even bother to fill out the FAFSA.
I wish you'd have told me that when I was coming along.
Yeah, so there's only so much you can do.
Oh. In order to continue the discussion of students, when I'm talking in class, I feel like I've talked to my peers, and they feel like there was somewhat of a disconnect between the professor and students. Like they feel the professor was able, he retained the information, but he couldn't properly execute it. And now some students feel like the department is, unorganized, and they feel like some professors are just here for a paycheck. So what are your opinions or thoughts or some ideas you can have in order to improve the relationship between the professors and students?
Sure, that's a great question. And by the way, that question addresses an issue that exists at every university. It's not an FSU issue, it's every university. I've worked at 6 universities and it's always an issue. Many faculty are still teaching the way they taught 20 years ago or 15 years ago. They haven't changed with the times. For example, they don't incorporate enough technology into what they're doing. You know, we have a incoming class of students who, in terms of technology, is fairly sophisticated. Well, they take courses where somebody's using lecture notes from 20 years ago, okay? So a lot of faculty here and other places really need to become a little more advanced and effective in terms of alternate ways of teaching. Okay, now, let me give you an example of how the state hurt us with a budget cut. Several years ago, the state said it wanted all of the universities in the UNC system to cut back the number of centers and institutes that those campuses had. Well, big campuses have 200 of them. So if they cut 30, they still have 170. At the time that came along, we only had 2 centers.
Wow.
And one was the Center for Teaching Effectiveness, which we had to cut.
Wow.
Okay, so this is the center where faculty that you're referring to could go and learn how to be more effective. Or if they wanted to teach online and teach a distance course, they could learn how to teach a distance course, and the state cut the center. Okay, so we had to close the center. Now what we've done in turn is taken those same responsibilities and put them in other places, but to have a focal center that you could use where faculty could go and get training to be more effective, and then the state cut the budget for that. You see, there's some things, even when you try your best, you still have difficulty getting done, and it's not your fault.
Wow, okay, that's deep. Now, Chancellor, of course we know right now in society we have a lot of racism going on, we have a lot of tension going on, okay? We have a lot of incidents that are taking place. So what kind of safety plan do you have in action so that some of those tensions and all won't arise here on the campus of FSU?
Yeah, well, every campus has an emergency management office. That office works with the campus police. Those 2 offices work with the city police. We work with the campus security team at University of North Carolina system office, etc. And we try to anticipate different kinds of events like this and to have a plan for each kind of event. So what we witnessed in Charlottesville, Virginia at the University of Virginia, that most likely isn't going to happen on our campus. But what if it did? What if it did? What if one night our students was sitting out in front of the dorm and all of a sudden marching through campus, you have neo-Nazis and racists using the N-word, just saying the N-word over and over and over, marching through campus. You see, you have to have a plan to be ready for that. So we're in the process of trying to anticipate a lot of different things, a lot of different tensions that can occur on campus. You can have just a tension in the classroom where somebody speaks out in the classroom and says some negative things about, let's say, the LGBTQ group. And that causes class tension, and it disrupts the class. We have ways of intervening and interacting with that. So we're trying to anticipate as many of these things as you can. The worst thing you never want is a murder on your campus. I mean, absolutely, if I can say what keeps me up at night, that's one of our students getting murdered on campus. That's the one that keeps me up at night. Fortunately, in my 10 years, that hasn't happened.
Okay, all right, good. So now, do the students ever do like little mock simulations on what to do if something like this takes place?
That's one of the things. Well, we have had what we call tabletop exercises.
Yes.
So we had a tabletop exercise about 2-3 years ago having to do with a single shooter on campus. Okay. Someone who, goes into a classroom, takes over the classroom with a gun, et cetera, or roams the campus with a gun. So we've had a single shooter exercise. We've also had, and when you do that exercise, you involve the whole city. Hospitals are involved, and you really act out what you would do if a single shooter was on campus. We also had a major toxic spill because the train goes right through campus, right? Suppose on that train that's going through campus headed to Fort Bragg, there were some toxic chemicals and there was a major spill, okay? We did that one. We emptied out the dorms, we emptied out the classrooms, and you have to let people know when you're doing these things though, because sometimes people in the neighborhood think it's live.
Exactly.
And they don't realize you're doing a training exercise. So you let everybody know, but you do that so that you're prepared to try to anticipate events that you just can't predict.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Anderson, for the wonderful time that we spent today.
Sure.
Thank you, audience. Thank you, Jaylen. This concludes part 1 of the Bronco Exchange. I'm Dr. Shanessa Fenner.
much hypnotized. Familiar stranger, stranger. Wait, hold up, don't run, I don't bite. Familiar stranger, you got me so very much hypnotized. Familiar stranger, stranger. Wait, hold up, don't